Hello once again, friends, neighbors, and fellow Christians, and welcome back to our ministry here at What the Bible Says, where we are continuing in this series of videos and lessons where we are considering the material that has been presented and is being presented by Brother Coogan Collinsʼ, and he is offering up objections to the paradigm of all things fulfilled. And of course, he is in what is known as the futurist paradigm, although he doesn't particularly care for that term, and I don't use it in a derogatory manner. It just means that in his paradigm, he posits the second coming, the resurrection, and the judgment, along with the end of time, obviously, in our future. Whereas the paradigm of all things fulfilled, we believe those things are all fulfilled, with, of course, the exception of we don't believe in an end of time. The Bible does not speak of an end of time, an end of the material cosmos anywhere, and this will be addressed in this series of videos a little more in detail, because that is one of the things that Brother Collinsʼ goes back to the Old Testament to try to establish, because I asked him that question. He goes back to the Old Testament to try to establish that even under the law of Moses, that it foretold of the end of material creation. So again, we're going to be addressing these things in these few videos. And so as we continue then in this series, where we are debunking the typical objections that are raised against all things fulfilled. And then, so we're going to get into this, and like I said, we have been bouncing arguments back and forth for several weeks now, and I have been pointing out time after time after time that my position is based solely on what the texts say. All right? I don't have to do any word gymnastics. I don't have to redefine anything. Whereas Brother Collins's position, which is the majority view in the realm of religion with various flavors, but anyway, his position is built entirely on restructuring, reconstructing what the texts say, redefining the terminology, changing present tense into future tense, and things of this nature. Building straw man diversions, misrepresenting my position heavily. Again, we'll demonstrate this. This is not just empty assertions. So we're going to demonstrate these things. And so we're going to cover quite a number of points, because I had written a couple of articles, and Brother Collinsʼ has responded to those in not a great amount of material, a little less than 5,000 words, so it's nothing overwhelming, but nothing to sneeze at either. So it's way more than what we can address in just one video, and try to keep folks' interest. And so, as I said, we're going to cover quite a number of points from Brother Collins's latest responses to our arguments. But in the interest of your interest, pun intended, of course, we're only going to address one point in this video so we don't hold you up for too long. But now, folks, these next few videos are going to be a little different, a little out of the ordinary, and in fact, they're going to be way out of the ordinary, in that I am not asking you to believe anything that I present in favor of the fulfilled paradigm. Now, does that make sense? Let me say it another way. I want you to consider the things that I'm about to share with you, regardless of whether you hold to the futurist paradigm or whether you hold to the fulfilled paradigm, or neither. In other words, I want you to lay aside doctrine, okay? I want you to focus on my hermeneutic versus Brother Collins's hermeneutic. Which hermeneutic is more accurate biblically, and which one is more honest? Or maybe I should say, which one is more biblical and honest? You get the picture. Hopefully that's clear enough to understand. And so the point that I'm going to address in this video is not in consecutive order, of the material that he posted. But I'm bringing this up first and to the forefront because I have stated many times through the years that Luke 21, verse 22, is literally the key to properly understanding the entire focus of the biblical story from Genesis through Revelation. If a Bible student does not properly understand Luke 21 verse 22, then he or she will inevitably misunderstand other eschatological texts. And my hermeneutic is to take the text exactly for what it says. That is, where Jesus said, when you see the city surrounded by armies, know that the desolation thereof is nigh. These are the days of vengeance in which all things that are written are to be fulfilled. All right? Now, I have consistently said in all arguments and all discussions, bar none, that my position is that all things which are written were fulfilled in and by AD 70. This is the bedrock and the single most contributing factor to what led me out of the futurist paradigm. And I have emphasized this heavily in my discussions, in my writings, in our lectureships. I have emphasized this over and over. I have emphasized over and over to Brother Collinsʼ that taking these words of Jesus for just how he said them refutes his futurist paradigm, and that my paradigm rests on exactly what are the words of Jesus himself, unaltered, no interpretation needed from me. And the overwhelming power of this hermeneutic is a force to be reckoned with by Brother Collinsʼ. So I ask that you consider Brother Collins's hermeneutic in dealing with this passage. Now, there's a little bit of overlap in our arguments here to get to some of Brother Collins's statements. Now, I have repeatedly and consistently pointed out that my position is that the physical destruction of Jerusalem and the Jewish temple in the wars, the siege and destruction of Jerusalem that began in AD 67, lasted through AD 70, 3.5 years, that this was God's judgment on Israel for violating God's covenant, the marriage covenant, that is the law of Moses, God's covenant with him and Israel. And as such, this judgment extended all the way back to Abel, as Jesus said there in Matthew 23, 35 and following, in vindication of the martyrs, all the righteous martyrs. All right? Now, we're going to do a little bit of a flashback here to go back and pick up some of the discussion, some of the statements that have been made by Brother Collinsʼ, primarily in the what I called the word dump session on Brother John Watson's page, in the some 13,000 words in that one section of comments. But anyway, we're going to go back and pick up 2 or 3 of Brother Collins's statements in those conversations. And so Brother Collinsʼ said, in regard to what I just said, the judgment extending all the way back to Abel and the vindication of the martyrs, that Brother Collinsʼ responded to the vindication of Abel by saying, while AD, I'm quoting the words of Brother Collinsʼ, while AD 70 demonstrated God's judgment on a covenant-breaking nation, Luke 21:22, did you catch that? While AD 70 demonstrated God's judgment on a covenant-breaking nation, Luke 21:22. So you see, Brother Collinsʼ has just admitted that the AD 70 judgment was a covenantal judgment against Israel for breaking the covenant between Jehovah and Israel. All right? Brother Collins continued by saying that Jesus' reference to Abel anticipates comprehensive vindication, not a single historical moment. Let me read that for you again. Brother Collins said Jesus' reference to Abel anticipates comprehensive vindication, not a single historical moment. So, Brother Collins' admission here 100% validates my position and my hermeneutic. But this admission has squashed Brother Collins into a box. And so, facing this unget-overable hurdle, then Brother Collins tells me that I assert that Jesus' statement in Luke 21:22, for these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written will be fulfilled, that this proves that every prophecy was fulfilled by AD 70. Okay, and so again, Brother Collins has accurately stated my position that Jesus' statement in Luke 21:22, these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled, that this proves that every prophecy was fulfilled by 80. See, he's citing my argument, and then he's going to try to refute it. But the point is, he cited my position accurately. That I'm saying that the words of Jesus prove that all prophecy was fulfilled by AD 70. Okay? He goes on and says, Luke 21:22 must be interpreted in its immediate context. Why? See, he just cited my position correctly. Now he's trying to refute it. This is a flashback now. And he says Luke 21:22 must be interpreted in its immediate context. So, why? Why must Brother Collins interpret the text to mean something other than what it clearly says and what he has just clearly already admitted? What hermeneutics says it must be interpreted in its immediate context when Jesus appropriated prophecies from Daniel, from Isaiah, from Joel, and folks, literally, in the very next sentence, Brother Collins said, Jesus is specifically addressing the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, which was indeed a fulfillment of numerous Old Testament prophecies about God's judgment on Israel, Daniel 9:26-27. So Brother Collins just flatly contradicted himself, literally, from one sentence to the next. And so, again, folks, doctrine aside, which hermeneutic should be used in studying the Bible? Which one of us displays a proper and consistent hermeneutic? Why does Brother Collins need to interpret what the text says to make it mean something other than what it clearly says? Or let the text say exactly what it says and contradict himself at the same time? Okay. Now, Brother Collins goes on to say local context. Now, you got to catch this. This is after he has said that it was a comprehensive judgment going back to Abel in vindication of the martyrs, not a single historical moment. Now he says local context. Jesus is addressing specific judgments prophesied concerning Jerusalem particularly the destruction of the temple as seen in Daniel 9, 26 and 27. The all things refers to the culmination of those prophecies tied to that event. And so Brother Collinsʼ is now insisting that all things written refers to the culmination of the prophecies regarding the demise of the Jewish temple. In other words, he's now arguing for a historical moment after having said it was not a single historical moment. So again, folks, doctrine aside, we're not talking about doctrine. We're talking about Brother Collins's hermeneutic. And his hermeneutic is that of selectively reading the 70 weeks prophecy of Daniel 9, 26 and 27, just like he selectively reads Acts 1, verse 11, and ignores the preceding verse that says, "And a cloud received him out of their sight." And just like he selectively reads one word and rips it out of the sentence in Hebrews 9:28, where Paul said, "And unto them that look for him shall he appear." And see, he rips that out of its sentence to say, well, that means that he must visibly appear, ocularly. You see, the 70 weeks of prophecy of Daniel 9 here, and he is appealing to just the two verses because they speak of the demise of the temple. But we need to back up, because in verse 24 it says the 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. Who's Daniel's people? That's Israel. And upon your holy city. What was that? That's Jerusalem. 70 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy. That's Luke 21:22, folks. And Brother Collinsʼ has just said that that was going to be the culmination of that prophecy. And so even in verse 26, the verse that he appeals to, says that after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. But that's Hebrews 9:26, where Jesus appeared in the end of the age to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. So, and we'll have more to say about that, Lord willing, in upcoming videos, and probably the next video when we address the end of the age, his deflection on that. So, Brother Collins's hermeneutic is that of citing a prophetic source, which includes the crucifixion of Christ, in other words, the entire apostolic era, and reconstructing that prophecy into a local application of a historical event which occurred in AD 70, after having said that it was not a single historical moment. So again, folks, doctrine aside, I'm not trying to convince you of the fulfilled paradigm. Lay doctrine aside, folks, and even if you don't agree with my position, who is exemplifying the proper hermeneutic? Is that me, who just says, let's just take the text for what it says? Or is it Brother Collinsʼ, who manipulates and reconstructs the text and selectively reads prophetic source texts and then contradicts himself while doing so? And you see, again, Brother Collinsʼ refutes himself. Why? I'm glad you asked. Because in Brother Collins's own words, again, he said the all things refers to the culmination of those prophecies tied to that event. What event? The destruction of the city and the temple. And since Daniel 2 and 7 and Daniel 9 and Daniel 12 are parallel, which that is that's not even debatable. They are parallel. They're all foretelling the eschaton, the biblical eschaton. Then the all things cannot exclude the resurrection of the just and the unjust of chapter 12, and it cannot exclude the coming of the Son of Man in the clouds of heaven of chapter 7, and the eschatological judgment in both of those texts of these prophecies. And so Brother Collinsʼ rather handily refutes himself. You see, all I have to do is quote Brother Collinsʼ, quote his words to refute Brother Collins's words. And see, if any of you think that I have misrepresented Brother Collinsʼ in any way, then you leave a comment down below detailing. No, I don't want your opinions and your feelings now. I want you to explain, if you think I've misrepresented him, I want you to explain exactly how I have misrepresented him. And so this brings us to Brother Collins's latest swap at deflecting this passage of Luke 21, verse 22, where he tells me that my argument misinterprets Luke 21 by forcing it into a framework that contradicts its intended meaning. Really? You see, folks, this is the good old bait and switch psychological trick of trying to convince you that this is just my interpretation, so that Brother Collinsʼ then can assert that his interpretation is superior to mine. And Brother Collinsʼ is desperate to convince you that my hermeneutic is nothing more than just my interpretation, and to prevent you from remembering the number of times that I have said over and over and over again, I'm not interpreting this verse. I take this verse exactly as Jesus has said. These are the days of vengeance, that all things that are written are to be fulfilled. That's my position. There's no interpretation there. And this is absolutely critical to sustaining Brother Collins's paradigm, and that is convincing you that this is just my interpretation and that I am interpreting it. And how was it he said it? That my argument misinterprets Luke. No, it can't misinterpret Luke 21:22 because I'm not interpreting the passage. So that's an impossibility. But again, doctrine aside, folks, is Brother Collinsʼ using an honest and a straightforward hermeneutic when he attempts to cloud your consideration of the fact that I don't give an interpretation of this verse, and that my hermeneutic is that of merely quoting the text, and what the text says is my position? And so this brings us to Brother Collins's most recent comments. And in these last comments, most recently that he posted, when faced again with the force of this text, Brother Collinsʼ says that I argue that Luke 21:22 means that every prophecy ever given was fulfilled in AD 70. Did you catch that? Brother Collinsʼ said that I am arguing that Luke 21:22 means that every prophecy ever given was fulfilled in AD 70. And, okay, I'm going to finish his quote. But this is a gross misreading of the text. Luke 21:22 refers specifically to the judgment on Jerusalem, after he said it was not a historical event, not the fulfillment of every eschatological prophecy. Well, no, Brother Collinsʼ. This is a gross misrepresentation of my position with your colossal straw man. The fact that you have made such a flagrant, dishonest misrepresentation of my position literally destroys all your credibility. Again, folks, lay aside whoever's position you agree with or disagree with, or if you don't agree with either one, and honestly evaluate Brother Collins's hermeneutic. Is it honest for someone claiming to be a Christian, responsible for handling aright God's Word, to make such a vulgar and false accusation against his opponent? Now, you've heard it from his own words, as he correctly stated my position, that all things written would be fulfilled by the fall of the temple. So, is it fair and honest of Brother Collinsʼ to accuse me of saying that every eschatological prophecy was fulfilled in AD 70? So, folks, you have to ask yourself the question and use some basic common respect here as to why Brother Collinsʼ would need to so egregiously and willfully misrepresent me if in fact I am the one who's wrong. Then Brother Collinsʼ goes on to say that it refers specifically to the judgment on Jerusalem. No, Brother Collinsʼ, no. The text specifically says that it refers to all things written. The judgment that occurred at that time was the covenantal judgment on Israel that you have admitted. So why are you contradicting yourself by trying to dupe your audience into thinking this verse refers to less than what you yourself have already admitted that I have read from your own words for your audience to hear? Now, you see, I've called you out. You're on the carpet now, brother. You have been exposed publicly for being dishonest. Now, Brother Collinsʼ has admitted that the Mosaic covenant ended in AD 70 because there was no more temple. And so this again is an admission from Brother Collinsʼ that the physical, localized events of the dismantling of the Jewish temple was a sign of the covenantal judgment of Israel, which is exactly my position. So why does Brother Collinsʼ have to express such flagrant dishonesty in falsely accusing me of believing every eschatological prophecy was fulfilled in AD 70, something he himself has quoted me correctly in saying that all things written would be fulfilled by AD 70? Again, folks, lay doctrine aside. Doctrine is not the issue here. Is being flatly dishonest and self-contradictory the right way to handle God's Word? And you see, Brother Collinsʼ tries to justify his straw man by saying, well, now, Jesus had previously stated in Luke 18:31 through 33, all things that are written, and he didn't even quote the verse. The verse says, and behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished. Okay, that's what the verse says. He didn't quote all of it. But anyway, that's not a big deal, not a game changer. And then Brother Collinsʼ says, did this mean that every single prophecy of the Old Testament was fulfilled at the crucifixion? No. It meant that all things concerning that particular event were fulfilled. Similarly, Luke 21:22 is limited to the destruction of, is limited now, notice that, after having said it was not a local historical event. Similarly, Luke 21:22 is limited to the destruction of Jerusalem, not the final judgment of the world. And so, in Brother Collins's treatment of my argument on Luke 21:22, he has just exemplified the mark of a double-minded man by employing a bucket full of logical fallacies. He started off with the straw man fallacy by accusing me of saying that my argument means that all prophecy that was ever written was fulfilled in AD 70, which I never said. Which he even quoted me, and that's even the straw man. His straw man's a contradiction to what he has said. And so instead of engaging my actual argument, and that is that all Old Testament prophecy was fulfilled by AD 70, then he has invented an egregiously false version of my argument. And then he is attacking that instead of my argument. And folks, this is a textbook straw man diversion. And then, after building a straw man, he compares two texts that are not logically equivalent. Luke 18:31, which we just quoted, this is clearly limited to specific prophecies about the crucifixion and the resurrection, because Jesus enumerates those things. He said, behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written in the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished. And he says, he'll be captured, he'll be spit on, and he says, and he lists all those things. But he qualifies the all things that are written concerning the Son of Man. There's that qualifier. And so when we come to Luke 21:22, the statement is, these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written are to be fulfilled. There is no qualifier. You see, this is a broad, unqualified statement referring to all Old Testament prophecy. Again, that had not already been fulfilled. And again, folks, I have pointed this out ad nauseum. Paul uses the illustration in Ephesians 2 of a building under construction is being built up. I'm a carpenter. I have built houses literally from the ground up, digging the foundation, the ditch myself, pouring the concrete in the ditch myself. I'd hire somebody to lay the block. I can do that, but I could. Maybe not now. I'd hire somebody to lay the block. I have literally, with my hands, built a house from the dirt up to turnkey project. All right? So we build the house. It's framed up. It's under roof. Put the doors and the windows in. Now the homeowners can go inside their house. But it's not complete. Now we keep on working on the house, and we start doing all the rough-in work, the electrical and the plumbing, the security systems, and we do all this rough-in work. But the house is not complete yet. But the homeowner can come in. They might even come in and say, hey, I want to move this wall, or I want to move this door. Move this doorway over here. I actually built a house one time right down the road here, and framed up a bunch of stuff, and the homeowner came in and she said, Roy, where's the door to the laundry room? And in our haste, I had framed it up and didn't frame a doorway for the laundry, so that's just kind of a standing joke. But that's the point. The homeowner can come in before the project is complete. All right? So this is how the church was being built up. And so prophecy foretold the coming of John the Baptizer. Okay, those were fulfilled. Prophecy of Elijah coming. Jesus said John was Elijah. That was fulfilled. Prophecies of Jesus being crucified and being raised again the third day. Those were fulfilled. But all things were not fulfilled yet. All right? That's the point. By the time of AD 70, all things would be fulfilled. And that's the force of Jesus' statement in Luke 21:22. The force of that is that nobody can go back to the Old Testament and the Old Testament prophets and get those prophecies and drag them into our future. Because Jesus said all those things will be fulfilled by the fall of the temple. And again, that is the force of his statement, and there is no qualifier in his statement. But Luke 18:31 has the qualifier concerning the Son of Man. And so Brother Collinsʼ even though he quoted the verse accurately. He ignored the qualifier and then equates that to Luke 21:22 to suggest that both are limited in scope. Excuse me. And this is the logical fallacy known as the false equivalence, because the texts are not parallel. One is specific, Luke 18, because it has a clearly stated qualifier. The other is comprehensive, Luke 21, because there is no qualifier. Brother Collinsʼ abuses the Luke 18 text, ignoring the qualifier, so he can insert his own fabricated qualifier into Luke 21, verse 22, concerning the destruction of Jerusalem. And thus Brother Collinsʼ changes what the text says. So again, folks, lay doctrine aside. I'm not trying to convince you of the fulfilled paradigm. Lay doctrine aside. Is this acceptable on any level? For any doctrinal position, for a person to change what the biblical text says to suit their needs. All right, then Brother Collinsʼ applies one hermeneutic to Luke 18:31 through 33, again, disregarding the qualifier, which we've just said that, and then he uses a different hermeneutic by inserting his own qualifier into the phrase in Luke 21 when he has just gone to Luke 18 to say, and ignore the qualifier to say it's similar. He's trying to argue no qualifier to say they're similar while inserting his own qualifier into Luke 21. And so he's pleading for special treatment of Luke 21:22 by arbitrarily limiting its scope, even though the text itself does not do so, and even to contradicting his own admissions that this refers to the covenantal judgment of Israel extending all the way back to Abel. And this is blatantly inconsistent and a glaringly dishonest handling of the text. And this is a spectacular demonstration of Brother Collinsʼ being double-minded as he unloads his multi-layered fallacy of using misdirection, disinformation, inconsistent reasoning, and egregiously dishonest accusation against my position, and faulty comparisons, all to defend his position that cannot be sustained simply by what the text says. And so, folks, I'm going to leave you with the question again, that laying aside whether or not you agree with the fulfilled paradigm, or even if you disagree with both, is Brother Collins's hermeneutic ethical? Is Brother Collinsʼ justified in lying as long as he is denigrating the fulfilled paradigm? Well, if so, then is it likewise justifiable to tell blatant lies on Calvinists who agree with us who teach the necessity of baptism? You know, it looks like Brother Collinsʼ would be very familiar with how it feels when one of our anti-baptismal friends accuses him of teaching baptismal regeneration. And it looks like Brother Collinsʼ wouldn't then turn right around and use the same deceitful, underhanded tactics against me, and then expect you, the audience, to be dumb enough to accept his behavior as acceptable. You know the old saying, the old proverb, wisdom is justified of her children. But what about lying? That's what I'm going to leave you with, folks. So we're going to end our video right here, and I want you to think about these things. Go back and watch the video again, and study, tongue-in-cheek, the questions that I have posed. Again, no doctrine involved, just the hermeneutic of Brother Collinsʼ. Who is more on track? Who is more accurate in handling the scriptures? Me, who says, let's just take Jesus' words for what it says. These are the days of vengeance, that all things that are written are to be fulfilled. That's my position. Or Brother Collinsʼ, who jumps back and forth, contradicting himself, redefining everything, reconstructing, falsely accusing me, misrepresenting me, to try to justify not just accepting what those words say. Now think about that. We're going to leave you with that. So until our next video, folks, I pray that God will bless you richly in your study of His Word. Keep studying, folks, and don't forget, smash that like button. Y'all have a good day. Thank you so much for your time.